taking the courageous step, like running from comfort, and stepping out of your comfort zone and just going, do you know what, I'm going to take a chance.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And I think often what we do is we think about how someone else will perceive it rather than just do it, because the reality is you don't know what someone else is thinking.
Hello everybody and welcome to Running from Comfort. This is episode 20, Career, Divorce and Everything Else. I'm your host Zach, and today's show, our guest is Beck Cohrrsen. She's a family lawyer and principal at MA Legal. Now you may recall episode 13 of the show where we had Rex on the podcast. Rex is the other principal at MA Legal and also Beck's husband. So if you want to listen to Rex's success story, then go back to episode 13 and check that out. But for today, we're here to listen to Beck's story. So we discuss Beck's journey in her career, beginning at the time when she was a junior lawyer, which is currently what I'm doing. And I tell you what, being a junior lawyer, it's hard. Yeah, I don't need to complain, but you know, you're working long hours, there's so much you need to learn, and there's a lot of stress that you need to manage. So Beck tells us about how she was able to overcome a lot of the challenges that she faces as a junior lawyer, but then we also talk about different lessons that she learned from challenges that she faced all the way up through her career, including now as a principal where she's still learning, because that is the thing about life. We're always learning. As Beck is a family lawyer, she sees divorce firsthand on a daily basis. So we talk about a lot of the traps and pitfalls that lead to people having their breakdowns in relationships, and there is a lot to be learned in this conversation. And then finally, we talk about parenthood and how becoming a mother has impacted Beck's life. Being career-orientated can be difficult, but being career-orientated and then also being a mother would be its own challenge. So Beck talks about how she's able to manage her career life and her family life and always make sure that her family comes first. There is a lot to get out of this jam-packed conversation, so I hope you all enjoy, and if you do, please do not forget to share this with somebody else, like or give it a rating depending on where you're listening, and subscribe for future episodes.
Alright, well, my story legally is I started off at a very small practice, thinking I was going to be a criminal law barrister eventually.
Isn't that what everybody wants to be that studies law?
Pretty much. You watch too much TV and you think sex, drugs, rock and roll, and I'm off. So off I went, and I landed up in this dingy, tiny little office with files all around me. I had no idea what I was doing. And cue about 6 months in, 5 million meltdowns every single night. It was really, really tough. And at the time, I developed a methodology of just one foot in front of the other and make it to 2 years. And I made it to my 2 years, and thereafter it got a lot easier. And the key takeaway I say to every single junior lawyer is it's the moment you think you're going to break and you've been pushed too far, that is generally the moment where something clicks and you get it and you move on. And then generally you practice for another few years and suddenly it happens all over again. You feel overwhelmed, you think you're not going to cope, and something clicks and you keep going on and on and on. It's a continuous process. It's kind of like life.
So a lot of things there, but just to start with, what was it that was going to make you break? Was it the hours? Was it the work you're being exposed to?
I think as a junior, when you finish law school, you'd know this, when you finish law school, you think you know things. And I think as humans, the hardest thing to do is you think you know something, you go into the world thinking, that's it, I've got it, I'm going to give it my all. And you get there and suddenly you realize you don't know anything. It's a combination of not knowing anything with an expectation that you're going to produce work above what you're actually capable of. You think you can do it, and then when you put pen to paper, it's not what you thought it would be. It's that combined with the hours, combined with invariably there is a process. It's almost like a hazing when you're a junior, where you get a lot of pressure on, you get the hours, you get the work thrown at you, and you just sit there and either you freeze up, which happens to 90% of juniors, is you have this moment where you're like, or you push through. And again, most push through and you just start doing it. But it's during that process where you feel like it's almost like part of you is breaking down while you're rebuilding. And it's a rebuilding process. And during that process, it's quite emotionally taxing because you've also put a lot of pressure on yourself. And you expect yourself to do better. And then you've also got someone else's expectations on you. And the irony is the person who's hired you generally has zero expectations of you. So most of it's pressure you put on yourself. But it wears thin. I think the important thing is to make sure you've got the right support around you, which generally is in the form of mentors, family, someone there who can remind you, hey Zach, hey Beck, you are who you are, you can do this. I think if you don't have that, it becomes really challenging.
And during those early years, was there a way that you dealt with your stress in any particular manner, or?
Yes, so I used to run. I was a big runner, so I'd run or never on the road. Bikes on the road, I've got feelings about them. But I used to cycle on a stationary bike. I was a massive cycler and a massive runner. And then after time, when I stopped having that like mad dash feeling to just run away, I started painting. I think it's important just to have some form of outlet that can distract you and is completely unrelated to what you're doing during the day. It allows you to reset.
Yeah, it's very good having those hobbies. I mean, for example, mine is the gym. It's good to have somewhere we can just unload and let out that anger anger, stress, frustration, whatever it may be.
Exactly. Although currently I really want to go to the break room. Have you heard of the break room?
No, what's that?
So it's a setup, I think it's in the city. It's a setup where basically they put in glassware and tumblers and all kinds of things, and you go in and you literally break it. Like with a baseball bat.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I would love to do it.
So, carrying on,
Yeah.
so, because now you're in a position where you're a principal at a law firm, like, what is that journey like, starting off as a junior and then working your way sort of to the top, I suppose you'd say?
I think every step of the journey comes with different challenges, different rewards and different challenges. So I think as a junior, it's really survival. Once you make it generally I find the first year is the hardest. Once you make it through the first year, you're okay. During your second year, invariably there's a mistake. Because you're not confident, you're comfortable, and you'll make a mistake. And that's a big learning curve because now you have to address your mistake. Once you progress through learning more about practice, and I encourage this with members of my team, then it becomes a case of, well, now you've got the knowledge, it's time to impart it. And you start training up others. And that's generally when you go sort of associate to senior associate level, it becomes incumbent on you to learn to train. And that is an entirely different skill set and delegating. And then you've got to trust the people you've trained to do the work. And generally speaking, law and most businesses, especially when you're a business owner, they attract a level of perfection. And it's learning to, in some regards, let go of that or understand and appreciate that someone else's perfection is not yours. And it's the letting go process. Once you're a principal, initially it's dealing with the pressure because you feel responsible for everything. And it's also remembering that at the end of the day, your office is a collective of people. Everyone's got their own needs, their own approaches, their own skill set. And I can't remember whose quote this is, but I think it's Richard Branson who says, you hire talented people and you get out of their way. And that is the biggest challenge as you move up the ladder, is then knowing, well, this is what I'm good at, and I'll do this. This is what I'm not good at, but I've now got a team member who is really good at it. Get the hell out of their way. Support them, encourage them, but other than that, let them do their thing.
Okay, so a few things I want to take you back through there.
Yeah.
So the first one is, you said it's a mistake in your second year because you start to get comfortable. Why is getting comfortable a mistake?
You get complacent. It's like all things in life. I think... So I'm a family lawyer. I think that when you look at long marriages, sometimes you can almost see a break where everyone's so relaxed that you don't work on it anymore. You don't work on your marriage or your relationship. Practice and business and life, I think, is the same thing. You get comfortable, you know what you're doing, you fall into a pattern, you fall into a routine, and sometimes it just takes one slight difference. And if you don't actually appreciate that difference and address it, that's where the mistake comes in. So for juniors, it will be they'll prepare the same documents, they'll have the same conferences, it'll all flow beautifully, but there'll be one different scenario. And because they're so used to looking straight ahead, they don't actually pick up on that. And invariably, that's where something goes wrong. And I think it's when you stop paying attention and you stop working continuously on, and especially in practice, on your skill set, that's where things go wrong. And it's very similar to life. If you just sort of tunnel vision, you miss everything else that's happening on the side. A lot of my team members, I never advertise for their positions. One of my star lawyers now, shout out to Marissa, what she did is I met her as a law student. She said hi, we had a chat, she was at court, and that was the end of it. And I remember normally you meet people and you don't forget, but they don't really feature again. And about a week later she emailed me, and she's now been with us for years. And she was one of the lawyers that I am proud to take on my wing and go, boom, let's get you where you want to go. I think sometimes it's taking the courageous step, like running from comfort, and stepping out of your comfort zone and just going, do you know what, I'm going to take a chance.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And I think often what we do is we think about how someone else will perceive it rather than just do it, because the reality is you don't know what someone else is thinking.
Yeah, no, and what you're saying there, that just goes back to insecurity and fearing other people's judgments. Sometimes, people, they won't take an opportunity or they won't do what they want to do because they're thinking about what everybody else thinks and not actually caring about themselves and their own happiness and their own goals. Exactly.
I think also what we tend to do as humans day to day is we think the worst of others in the sense of what they're thinking about us. So say you're having, the best example I've given someone is, say you're having an off day. You just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you snap at someone. You would, as a normal functional human being generally, you look at it and go, oh my God, they think I'm this horrible person who snaps and I'm just being mean. Whereas in reality, often what they'll be perceiving is, well, actually, so-and-so just snapped at me. They must be having a bad day, or is everything okay? But we assume that they dislike us based on our behavior, when in reality, the response that's elicited is not dislike, it's concern. So I think if we focus too much on what others are seeing, we don't look at ourselves enough.
That process of becoming a principal lawyer, you said at about the senior associate level, you start to train other people. What is it about helping to train other people that helps with your own development?
Well, when you train someone else, it's almost like you're solidifying what you know. That, and also what's regularly discounted is you learn a lot from those people in your team. Anyone who's in your team comes to you and they will be working with you because they have something that if you interview them, they have something you like or a trait or a skill set that you don't quite have. That, and also when you're in the training / I don't like training per se, when you're mentoring someone, what happens then is they will learn to question you. And when someone questions you, it forces you to think outside of your own tunnel vision of how things should work. And they'll introduce concepts, ideas, approaches, strategies that in turn develop yours. So one of my favorite things to say to people in the office and in our teams is to say, well, look, what I'd like for you is to take everything I've got plus you. Because they will benefit from what I can offer them, what they already have. And in return, as much as we get the benefit of someone working hard for us, it also broadens my horizons. I get to appreciate a cultural difference. I get to appreciate a strategic difference. You learn a lot from other people. And I think in the first few years, it's really just all about being self-centered and developing your skills. But thereafter, it's about broadening it. You're helping someone else, but simultaneously helping yourself. It's like charity.
Yeah.
We do it to give back to the community, but there is a benefit to us too. It makes us feel good to be generous. It makes us feel empowered. It makes us feel grateful. It's a two-way street. Everything is. Yeah.
And so I suppose also what you're kind of saying there as well is while you're teaching the other person, you're learning about yourself in the process as well.
Yes, 100%. You're also learning how you yourself deal with different personality types. So for example, if you are working with someone who is very confident and you yourself were never confident, you learn about how that person interprets things and you can adopt it in your own life. If, for example, if you're an anxious personality and you're working with someone who's very laid back, you can see how they react to things. And sometimes in your personal life, you adopt that characteristic, you adopt that approach because you look at it and you go, well, actually, the way I've been doing it doesn't benefit me or my family or my friends as much. This is a better way of doing it. Let me try. Let me extend myself. It forces you to look beyond you, really. And I think that's what makes practice, that what makes life so rewarding, is where there's more than just you in the picture.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that just boils back down to empathy, really.
Yep, exactly. And I think the world doesn't have enough empathy, really, these days. I think, generally speaking, it's far too easy to become complacent. It's far too easy these days to just think about yourself. And I think it's a disservice to ourselves in doing that because you don't learn everything there is to know about yourself. And I think self-awareness is something we're lacking these days because we're constantly distracted by other things. It's that whole instant gratification era these days.
Everybody wants that quick fix. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a quick fix for everything.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the hardest things is to actually discipline yourself to, I suppose, work towards your goals, work towards your higher purpose, whatever that may be.
Exactly. And as much as often when you're on your own journey, you look and you go, okay, I've got this wonderful mentor. What mentees forget, for example, if you're approaching someone to mentor you professionally, what's often forgotten is how much benefit you have to your mentor. because you're offering something new and something fresh, and you're challenging their own perceptions as well, and you're helping them on their own journey. So really, I think life is, it's funny, someone once said to me, when you pass away, people don't really remember always, oh, well, she wore this and she was always well dressed. They remember the lives you impacted. And that's your legacy at the end of the day, is how many lives you impacted, what role you played on other people's lives. And when we think about everyone who's played a role in our journeys, you always remember the people.
Yeah.
And how they helped you and how they developed you. And I think that in practice and in life, it's really important to me to build that legacy and to look around and say, well, this is how I helped people and this is how they helped me, and to have like a mutual gratitude.
Yeah. No, that's very, very powerful. I always think, giving or helping other people is the most rewarding thing you can do in life. And for me at least, I really believe like no matter what you're doing in life, find a way you can sort of help somebody else. Exactly.
And even a small kindness often makes a huge difference to someone's day. My favorite thing is after a really long day, if I go grocery shopping and someone smiles at me, it's lovely. I love it. I think just small acts of kindness make a difference.
Interesting you say that, because something I would do is I'd make a conscious effort, if I was just in a good mood and I'm walking around, like I said, doing the groceries, this is a perfect example, I just have a smile on my face, and I notice when I'm walking around with a smile on my face, people will pay attention to you. Like some people smile back at you, some people kind of just, I don't know, they just stare at you weird, like you're alien. You're like, why is this guy happy? Like, what's going on? Life is shit.
But positivity attracts positivity. I genuinely believe that. So if you go out into the world with a positive outlook, it attracts positivity. It's like, what do they say? Bad things happen in threes. My theory behind it is one bad thing happens and it's life. Things happen. But once you get into a slump, it's very easy for a pattern to build. That being said, it's also very hard to break a pattern, but I think it's a conscious effort to do it.
And for somebody who's been in a few slumps of their life, I'll tell you what, the easiest thing there is to do is to pick up all of your old bad habits you thought you got rid of.
Yeah.
And that does not get you anywhere, I'll tell you what.
No, it doesn't. But it's human nature, we all do it. So my personal rule is I allow myself one day to wallow.
One day.
One day. It's a wallow day.
I think that's good, one day to wallow.
Yeah, you process it, you sulk, everyone hates me, life is shit, I'm over it, I can't do it anymore. You have your one day and then you pick yourself up and you keep going.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, 'cause sometimes too, like I don't get upset a lot, but sometimes when I do, I kind of almost sit there and like just enjoy it for like a small moment. I'm like, I like being sad. And then it's like, okay, come on, get your shit together, like slap yourself in the face, like come on.
You have to do it. There's a song, I'm only happy when it rains. I can't remember, it's an old 90s thing, but I used to love that. One of the lyrics was pour your misery on me, and I was like, you know what? This is going to be my thing now. One day, if something truly horrendous happens, allow yourself that day to just process it, because I also don't think there's any advantage in ignoring something that's gone wrong. You may as well just allow yourself to experience those emotions and then just go, right, that's it, I'm going to keep plodding on.
And I'll say, just from personal experience, I've definitely had things bother me or stay in the back of my mind for much longer than what they should, because I haven't actually taken the time out to embrace the emotion. And sometimes it's because, like, I don't know, I'm just like myself, no, I don't really think that way. And I don't allow myself to just be like, look, man, okay, you're human. Just deal with the fact that you have this stupid emotion, and not that it's stupid, but
I know what you mean. You find it, I think sometimes it's frustrating when it's something that for you personally shouldn't warrant that response or shouldn't elicit that response, and yet you still have it. Hence the one day wallow.
Yeah, like I say, I get embarrassed in my own head about it sometimes. It's just like, damn it, can I just get over it?
It's human nature. I think we all do it. We all do it. So we all have things that rationally do not warrant as much airtime as they get. But over the years, I figure rather just let it out. Say your say, even if it's completely irrational. And then it's out there, it's done, it's off your chest, and you can carry on.
And this is where I sometimes get in trouble with friends. I have a lot of friends that come to me, for advice, or they're sad and upset, and I try to let them be rational and get out of their BS, but sometimes I go straight to the logical solution. They're just like, come on, I'm trying to cry here.
Just listen to me.
Shout out to Mia if you're listening. That one's for you. But she hasn't listened to my podcast yet. Calls herself one of my best friends.
That is shocking.
So I'm going to tell her she has to listen to this one now, because you've been shouted out.
There we go. Mia, hi.
All right. Anyways, so carrying on here. So you're a family lawyer.
Yes.
And I was going to touch on this later, but you did touch on this earlier on, so I want to bring you back here. You made a mention that you feel like part of the things that goes wrong in marriages these days is people get comfortable. So as a family lawyer, I'm sure you've seen plenty of divorce.
Yes. Yes, I have.
Is that what you really feel is like the main reason that a lot of marriages do break down, or what are some of the things you see?
Well, there's a range. Look, I mean, you have the traditional things that result in every single love song ever written. There can be infidelity as a serious issue. There can be financial troubles as a serious issue. There are serious things that result in breakdowns of marriages. In the ones that aren't particularly acrimonious, often what would happen is it's a long marriage and they just drift. And couples drift, and those tend to be the ones that I personally feel quite sad about when we're acting for either parties, because you're looking at it and you're going, deep down, you know these two love each other. They're not really having a war. Those are sad, and I think what happens is that you lose sight of what brought you together and you stop working on it. And I think that as with all relationships and friendships, it takes work. It takes work to keep it going. It takes work to keep passion alive. It takes work to build on the relationship. And I think, as with all things, if you get too comfortable and complacent, it's almost as though you don't care enough to maintain it. I mean, women, we maintain our hair, we maintain our nails, we maintain our skin, we do all this work. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes the things that are nearest and dearest to us, you neglect. It's like a garden, using metaphors today. If you don't continuously look after it, invariably it falls into disrepair. Yeah,
and I suppose it's very easy. Like, you know, I've probably only been in like one real serious long-term relationship, and I know it's very easy to kind of just take your foot way off the gas, and then it's like, you know, you kind of just both living your own lives, or I don't know, like, and it's easy to like stop paying attention. I imagine it must be so hard to be in a long marriage. That's just I don't know, like, I'm 25, I'm single, I can't really speak for being married myself. But something my sister always says, which kind of sticks with me, is that she says she thinks that like the reason a lot of marriages break down is because she doesn't believe in like the emotion of love, in the sense that like, there is that does happen, but that is always going to go away. And her sort of lay opinion on this was, love at the end of the day is a choice. When you marry someone, if you're going to stay with them, you choose to stay with them no matter what.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. I think that you have I'm not the romantic in our relationship, clearly. I think that you have the initial chemistry. Invariably, you need your chemistry, the spark. And then you fall in love. And then over time, that bond, it's a bond. It grows. You love them deeply. You love them more. But that initial excitement period, often it fades for a while, and then it comes back and it fades. They say that when you're married for a long time, you fall in and out of love, and that's where the choice comes in. When you're in a period where obviously this person is your best friend, well, you'd hope they're your best friend. During that period, that's where the work comes in, where you go, okay, I love you, you're the world to me. Now we work on it, we build the spark, we remind each other why we're in this together. And I think that does take a lot of effort, and it's a conscious decision. And I ironically think that often when you've gone through a long relationship before, you've had one before, you tend to appreciate that a lot more. And I think family law specifically, well, at least I can speak for myself, you do tend to appreciate how easy it is for things to go pear-shaped. So in a healthy relationship, I'm not talking about, there are some terrible examples of relationships that we see, but in a healthy relationship, it's very easy to see how things fall apart. And I think that's where we actually have an advantage in our relationships, where we look at it and go, oh, wow, I was dealing with so-and-so settlement and they told me this. You can see it. You can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah,
when you're looking at it.
So it's what you're kind of saying there. You get to sort of understand some of these pitfalls a relationship can go in. Yeah. So
you get to see a lot of them. You get to see how they play out, and it's a conscious decision that you're like, I will not fall into that pitfall. I am going to work to make sure I don't. It's for me, the one that's really hard to watch is where there are children involved and you see how it goes wrong. And if anyone listening has children, we've all had the arguments in front of our children. We've all been upset with our partners in front of our children. It's looking at the extreme end of that when people are separating. And that's a big one. It's where you look at it and you see the impact it has. It does make you a better parent at the end of the day. So, for example, my husband and I, we are very conscious of it. So we've kind of developed a bit of a sing-song routine for when we're having an argument. And it's literally a case of, in the beginning, we used to sing to each other about how annoyed we were, just to insert a bit of humour into it and to keep it light. And that way, at least, you don't end up escalating that argument, especially in front of your child.
Okay.
Granted, she'll have a very interesting fight style when she's a teenager.
Oh, that's going to be funny.
Yeah.
But I imagine, being in family law, you have to see a lot of these difficult breakups, and especially when there's children involved, like, how much does the emotion that you have to deal with impact you?
It's like doctors. I think you have to compartmentalize things. Invariably, though, in any line of work, you'll have that one customer or that one client that will have a profound impact on you. Invariably, I always say, and the running joke is that I always have one that gets to me, one that I really think about, one that, you go to sleep, you think about. I think, as with all things and all emotions, you embrace it, and you have to remind yourself often. I often have to remind myself, it's not my life. I can only do the best I can do. But it can be quite challenging, and I think it affects all professionals in the family law sphere, whether you're a counsellor, a psychologist, or a doctor, or a barrister. It does have an impact. There's a barrister we regularly use named Darren Mort. Shout out Darren. He's actually written a book directed at children whose parents are going through separations, which just goes to show that it impacts him too. It impacts all of us. When we look at it and we go from the outside, we can see how terrible the situation is. And kudos to him, he's actually giving children a voice now. And it's a fantastic resource that for those clients that deeply impact me, I've started sending them Darren's book. It is a fantastic resource. It's about a little boy who sees his parents argue and both of them repartner. And essentially, it's a child's view of coming out the other end. So it describes the parents as roaring at each other like lions, and his imaginary friend comes to sort of help them through the process. And at the end, it's like the storm clouds lift and mummy and daddy are finally okay, and they can sit and be friendly with one another. It's a very human tale, and it's cautionary as well to actually illustrate to parents, this is how your child is seeing it. It's hard on your child. And it's also there for children to say, look, you're not alone, and it will be okay. And invariably, even in the messiest of separations, in a few years, it's always okay.
When I was, getting towards the end of law school, doing a few internships, getting to meet different people in the legal industry, the one thing that they all warned me was, don't do family law.
Really?
It's the one thing that I always used to cop. And, like the way they sort of described it, we've been through some of these things. It's very stressful.
Yes.
It's a very emotional area of law. But I don't want to focus on that at the moment. What I want to ask you is, what's the most rewarding part about being a family lawyer?
Family law, I will say this, it does cop a lot of flack. It is hands down the most rewarding area of law to work in. And I started out sort of trying on a couple of different hats, and that's where I settled on family law. You are part of someone's journey. Yes, you see the nasty side of people, but there is absolutely nothing as rewarding as helping someone go through that process. And people are vulnerable. When they see you and they're angry, they are vulnerable. And it's very empowering to help them through the process, guide them through the process, and you become that person's daily port of call. You speak to them every day. You are intimately involved in their lives. And you get to see them and support them develop. Where someone's used to being with someone and they split, it's normally the sense of hopelessness and anger. And you guide them through it. You guide them through the process. You help them get out the other side. And often I find you see people blossom afterwards because there's a reason that they went through that process in the first place. They weren't happy, and they go from a place from being extremely unhappy to gaining this feeling of independence and feeling empowered and feeling in control of their lives again. And I think that something that's discounted when people talk about family law is that there's a lot of fear when you're separating. It's a huge change. It's a huge change of what you're used to. It's a change in routine. But the people who separate, there's a reason for it. And when they get out the other end, you know that you had a positive influence on their lives and you've helped them move on. You've been part of the growth. You've been part of the personal story. I don't think there's any area of law that allows you to do that. It is the most emotionally satisfying area of law to work in my opinion. It is, I wouldn't change it for the world. It just takes a long time, and I think that's where people talk about the stress and the emotion, and it's tiring and stressful. It is, because the average file runs for at least a year. So it takes a long time, start to finish. But when you get to the end, you get to see this person who's blossomed and developed and gained a newfound sense of confidence and self-assurance.
And so what you're saying there too, you're seeing them through to a point where, they're back up on their feet, they're ready to go attack life again. So do you find yourself almost like being a counsellor in this role as well?
Look, we're not meant to be, but yes, you do find yourself in that position. You are someone's sounding board. Invariably, where you're their family lawyer, they trust you. So they will run things past you. They'll talk to you about things that are way beyond the scope of your retainer. But you do, to a degree. You listen to them talk about their fears, what they want from life, what they're aiming for, and you support them in that. It's often tricky because you've got to walk a bit of a tightrope. It's not for us to really cross that line. But yeah, I'd say not strange is not the right sort of word for it, but it's a very different type of relationship. It's a very intense relationship that you have with these people. And I think from that's what gives you that feeling of reward and that feeling of being part of someone's journey, is you really do guide them through the process, especially when someone's lost. And then towards the end, they find themselves, they find confidence, they find a new purpose for their lives.
So when you're taking these people through this journey, did you say that you have any insight or anything you might want to share as to what you see, when you take somebody who's lost and they come out the other end, like you said, with a new purpose? Is there anything in particular that you see that these people go through, like any particular traits or...
I see a separation when you're in a family law context. A separation it's grieving. You go through a grieving process. There's a bit of denial. Then you process that. Then there's the grief. Then it's followed by anger, and that phase is the bit that's quite tricky to deal with because it's directed at everyone. There's anger, and then there's this period of acceptance, and generally that's the wallow period. And then it forces someone to look at their lives and go, well, what is it you want? And that is a question we regularly ask our clients is, well, what is it that you want from your life? Because it's all good and well, you can say, okay, I'll get you this amount of money, this amount of time with your children, but what do you want? And it's in asking that question, and we do with all our clients, that the client or the person is forced to sit back and go, well, actually, what do I want from my life? And there's no common trait in a person to decide that. Everyone's very different. But that's where often you'll find someone sit there and go, you know what? I really wanted to pursue X, Y, and Z. And for whatever reason, I didn't. And that's what you see. That's the journey.
So it's like they're going back and rediscovering their purpose.
Exactly.
The dreams that they left behind.
Exactly. Or the dreams that they sort of sidelined, or the goals they sidelined. Or they just never actually asked themselves the question of where do I want to be in 5 years' time?
Yeah. That's actually a question I kind of hate, that where do you see yourself in 5 years, because I'm always kind of thinking to myself, like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I just keep on doing things, and I just want to see it take me somewhere. Not anywhere particular, but... Yeah,
it's a very confronting question, but I think we should all ask ourselves that. It's like the top interview question. Yeah.
But what I wanted to say here is I just wanted to just interject just slightly. So you don't have to be going through a divorce settlement to ask yourself the question, what do you want?
No.
Not enough people ask themselves this question.
Have an idea of what you want out of your life. Write it down and slap it somewhere in front of you. My goal was always to have a family law practice, my team, by the time I was 30. I am now 32, and I managed to have gone to a very small team. I was 2 members. But by that time, I was 30. If you want something, you write it down, you commit it to memory, you visit it every day, you'll find that even subconsciously, every step you take is going to be towards that goal. And you can do this in any context. It works in terms of starting a family. It works in terms of work. It works in terms of fitness goals. I think that if you commit something to writing and you put it in your face every single day, you don't forget it.
Definitely when I've been more committed to my goals, it has been when I've wrote them down. I'm not as disciplined in that practice at the moment, but thanks to the inspiration, I'm probably going to get back to probably writing down my goals more long term.
Yeah, you have to do it.
It's very important.
It's like when you're shredding for somewhere, shredding for the wedding, you know, you have
stereo.
You have something right there. You're shredding for stereo. You have it right there, and that's what you aim for. It keeps you accountable, and as embarrassing as it is, if it's in a place where other people can see it, you're more likely to stick to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd even go as far, and you're going to become that annoying person. This is something I did for a little while, and it actually did help. When I was doing the keto diet, I set myself a challenge to post my meals every day. Now, I made a separate Instagram page just for that. You may be following it. It's Galloways_take. I do use it for the podcast now. But I'll tell you what, that level of accountability really helped me. Even if nobody was liking the damn photos, just posting it there, just to make sure that like I had something to say, like, yeah, I ate keto today. I didn't do the carbs. I can go to bed happy.
Exactly. It's exactly that. You need something to hold you accountable. It's all good and well that you commit yourself to a goal. But if you have those weak moments, which we all do, you need something to give you a bit of a kick up the ass.
And I'll just say here, as a young adult, as a 25-year-old, kind of stumbling his way through life, which, you know, we all do at this age, accountability is the thing I struggle with the most, 100%. I find it so difficult to keep myself accountable at times, and that's just me trying to be real with you people. So, I mean, it's difficult. It's a difficult game. It's something I'm working on. It's something we can all work on.
I think it's a never-ending battle. Really, it's a battle zone when you set yourself a goal and you're trying to achieve it. It's hard. I think bite-sized chunks. That's the general gist. Bite-sized chunks. Break it down into something smaller, and you can build up to it slowly. I think sometimes if you're like, that's it, I'm going to lose 10 kgs. Yeah,
too overwhelming.
That's a bit tricky.
It's good to have the big goal, but like, for example, I try to read more books now, and like literally sometimes it just has to be as pathetic as I'll just read 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. One of my New Year's resolutions, because I read for a living, was I needed to read more, and my goal was I would read 10 pages a day. 10 pages. And now I've found I'm actually reading a lot more than that, but you just have to set the goal, and then on those worst days you're like, you still just read it. And what you find is once you're actually doing it, it's easy to get into. I think it's like training. Training's a good example. It's always a pain getting yourself to the gym. But once you're in there and the music's going, or you've got your headphones in and you're lifting up the weights, you feel good and you keep going. I became a mother 2 years ago and 4 months. 2 years and 4 months ago. It's wonderful. It's hard, but it's wonderful. It fundamentally changes you, and at the same time makes no difference at all. It's the strangest thing. The best thing I was told though is that when you have a child, you love them and you keep loving them more. You fall more and more in love with them, and I think that's an experience that initially I thought was absolute rubbish, but in reality it is life-altering.
Is this why my mum loves me so much? She's had 25 years too. Shout out, Mum. I know you're listening. You listen to every episode. Shout out. Mums
love their children. There is nothing you can do that will make your mum not love you. It's remarkable. You get to see this human being, and my daughter Audrey, she's only 2 and a bit now, but I reckon I could see her personality within the first few days. They're remarkable things. They're fascinating. They are their own little people. I cannot tell you. I'm a very smitten mum.
And so what I did want to get on with here is how has becoming a mother affected your career? Because how has this impacted that?
Look, it's tricky in the beginning, because when you first have a child, obviously you're just overrun with hormones and emotions, and you're smitten, and then it becomes a case of, well, you've got this child, that's your priority in life. Career-wise, I found initially it was quite difficult diverting attention to multiple things. I think the biggest thing for me is, and this is where I think a lot of women do struggle, is where you don't have a supportive environment. So earlier today, Zach and I were talking. He remembers me bringing my daughter into the office. So I didn't take any maternity leave per se. I came into the office and kept working through it. But I was in the right environment. It's the joys of having our own firm, is that I could pop her in a bassinet in the corner and keep working through it. Whereas I think that women who don't have that advantage, it would be hard, and it does force your career to take a backseat unless your partner is prepared to step up and stay home with your child initially. For me, I found it was actually really advantageous to what I did day in and day out. You have more of an appreciation of what parents are going through. You have much more of an appreciation of where priorities lie. You have much more of an appreciation when someone turns to you and says, I'm building this for my children. You understand it. I think it's very easy to understand the concept when someone talks, but you don't feel it. Whereas now you feel it, you know what they're doing, you can empathize, you can understand, and it does help you see the world differently in the sense of, at the end of the day, your family does come first. And when you're a young professional and you just got head down and you're working, sometimes you lose yourself and work a little bit, whereas having a child forces you to reevaluate your life and go, well, is this what I want from life? And more so, is this the example I want to set for my child? So I have a little girl. Obviously, I'm a woman. So for me, I was looking at it going, well, conceptually, I would like my daughter to know that she can have whatever she wants to have out of life. If she's prepared to work for it and make it work, she can have anything. And that was a really important consideration for me when I was pregnant and thinking about, well, how am I going to juggle this? And my big thing was, if a mum wants to stay at home and raise her child, it's a hard job, do it. It's your choice. If you want to go back to work, equally hard job, do it. But it's all about having the choice. And I don't think I really appreciated the role that choice plays in life until I had a child.
So there's a lot there. But I suppose what I want to ask is, what would be like your key piece of advice to somebody who is a woman who is career focused but also wanting to become a mother? Do you have any sort of advice for somebody in that situation?
I say I learned a few lessons. Planning is key. I was very disorganized in terms of how I was going to go about working and mumming. So if you want to maintain a career and still be a mum, it's really get yourself in the right environment, plan for it, figure out roughly what your approach is going to be, and then also be equally flexible, because unfortunately when you've got a whole little human there, it's very difficult to predict how they're going to react to situations and how they're going to deal with it. I think part of it as well is that there will be a lot of compromise. There is a lot of sacrifice involved in it. You do lose a lot of your free time, and your focus then does at times become very much work, home. And cut the mum guilt, which is rich coming from me because I'm permanently wrecked with mum guilt. But in order to do everything, you also have to cut yourself some slack too. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I think it's one I've only recently sort of acknowledged as something that my life was missing, is that I wasn't taking enough time for me.
Yeah.
And if I'm run down, everyone's run down.
And just what do you mean when you say mum guilt?
Mum guilt. It's the feeling of you want to be there for your child 24 hours a day. And then you've got guilt because you also, as a career woman, you want to be at work. You want to focus on your career. You want to build your legacy. And then your attention's permanently divided. So when you're at work, you feel guilty, you're not at home. When you're at home, you feel guilty, you're not at work. And I think, I don't know whether it's society or just internal pressure, it's one of those things where, yes, you can have it all, but sometimes not all at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't always be super mum and super lawyer or super doctor or super everything. Sometimes you're going to have to not be at home in order to do the best thing at work. And sometimes you're not going to be at work in order to do best by your child. It's learning to figure out what the balance is that works for you and making accommodations for it.
And it must really be difficult, especially in your position, because as a lawyer, the work never stops. No. Clients always have problems. I'm sure they hit you up with emails constantly. And if you ever need to take time off, the work's just going to be there for you when you get back.
It is always there, but here's a massive sell point for family law. Your clients, most of the time, are parents, so they understand. When Audrey was 8 weeks old, I remember sitting in a conference room, and she'd woken up. I went to get her, plonked her in my client's arms. He sat there holding her, and we carried on with our meeting. It's
That's really awesome.
It's good. It was a bit of a comfort dog, that meeting. It worked well.
So, I think, going on to next. Yeah. Oh, goodness. That would be a nice cut if I can get any words out. So, what I was getting to next here is, with here at MA Legal, you've got Rex, he runs the commercial side of the firm, and you run the family law side of the firm. Yeah. What is that dynamic like? And what is it like sort of running a business with your partner?
All right. Well, in practice, the reason we've separated out is because we do have very different approaches, both legally and in terms of how we manage our teams and how we mentor. It's actually not that hard where you're both in different areas of law, or different aspects of any business. So I have had clients who, and this is separate to family law, who are husband-wife teams. It can work very well. It does rely heavily on effective communication and calm communication, because in business you'll have partners regularly argue about things, and it's learning to communicate in a way that's not adversarial, that expresses a view, and generally speaking you come up with rules, essentially, is these are the things that require us both to sign off on, these are the things that we do not interrupt each other's autonomy on, and these are the decisions that absolutely you can make, but the other person does have veto power. So provided you have very clear guidelines of how you're going to operate the business, it works beautifully. The only danger is sometimes, especially when we're both going through a busy period, is that you go home and you're still talking about work. And that's a hard thing to switch off. Is that
a rule that you have?
No, we go home and talk about work all the time. We do have sort of a flag that gets waved when it's right, I've had enough, or I've had a really shockingly busy day, I just don't have capacity for it right now. And it's respecting one another enough to go, okay, well, I'm not going to vent at you today, or I know you don't want to listen to this, or occasionally you're like, well done, okay, you did a great job, but I didn't have a good day today. It all relies very heavily on communication. Fortunately, that is a strong point in our relationship. We are able to communicate very well. That having been said, it was not all sunshine and roses in the beginning. It takes a while to fall into a rhythm and figure out what works for both of you.
Yeah. No, I can imagine, because I suppose just a marriage on its own, or a business partnership on its own, could be very, very difficult. So merging those two things, but like you said, at the end of the day, it all comes back to communication, and I suppose as well as that, empathy. You both understand the position that you're both in as well.
Exactly, and it's fun too. I will say this: it is fun working with your significant other. You do share in each other's wins. You do get to see what the other person does day to day. There is a lot of pride in it. And there's also a lot of room to make fun of each other. So it's actually really fun to work with your partner. There are tricky days, and it's the tricky days that happen that make it challenging, but fortunately they're not too frequent. And it's very rare that we do come into a position where we need to actually sit down and talk it out. But for the most part, I enjoy it. That having been said, we do also have offices in separate corners for a reason.
There you go. All right, so I think we're about to wrap this one up here, but I've got one more question for you.
Is it a tricky one?
It's not. I don't know. Maybe.
Yep.
So, Beck.
Yes.
Your younger self is there. She's pulling her hair out because you're a junior lawyer and it's too damn stressful. You're working too many hours. What do you tell her?
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, I've sworn already.
Calm the fuck down. It will be okay. That is it. My younger self would get herself worked into a tizzy over absolutely everything. I think that if you have a goal in mind and you're working towards it, cut the pressure. You're doing the work, you're taking all the necessary steps. There is no point wasting your additional time on the emotions that aren't going to help you. I would literally say, calm down.
Calm the fuck down. That's
Calm
very
the
good
fuck
advice.
down.
And I just want to add to that quickly.
Yeah.
So is that to do with the patience thing as well? It's like once you know that the goal's there, so long as you're putting the work in, just understanding you'll get there one day.
You'll get there. And I think that's part of the journey. We all make mistakes. We all fuck up. We all get it wrong. But provided you're moving in that direction, even if it's a bit of a squonky line, you'll get there. The whole idea is you just keep moving forwards. And if you put additional pressure on yourself, it's not going to help you. You may as well just embrace the fact that, okay, I'm struggling with this or this is a challenge. But provided you're generally moving forwards, you'll get there. If you keep pushing yourself, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to worry about other people. It all happens. It's all part of the package. But as long as you've got the general direction right, you'll get there.
Yeah, and I'm at least banking on that patience because, like I said, I'm all over the place. I've got my goals. I take small steps towards them. So hopefully patience works because that's what I'm aiming for.
You're doing it. You're getting there.
Right, well, thank you so much, Beck. That was a really good interview. I think
Thank you, Zach.
You had a lot really good to share there. So I hope people are paying attention because, there's a lot of wisdom here, a lot of good advice, and
Thanks,
hope you
Zach.
enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed, and congratulations! You made it all the way to the end and you are still listening. That tells me that you enjoyed today's show. So because you enjoyed today so much that you made it to the end, do me a favor and share. And if you haven't already, like it. It only takes 2 seconds. And finally, please subscribe for future episodes because you definitely enjoyed this one, so I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest. All right, peace out, guys.